All right, so Lynn, Colt Keith called up today. Called up to AAA. How important is he to the future of the Tigers?
Vital, but they have to find a position for him, Jack. And really, that's the reason I think right now he's not being viewed as being quite Comerica Park ready. They have to find out, can he play infield, or are they going to have to move him to the outfield? And they'll establish that question over the second half. But they'd like for him to play third base. He's committed to playing third base, and they're working on him to play third base because he needs to. And also, you can imagine that if he doesn't have that option, then where is he going to play second base? And there's a guy up there now playing for you guys up at West Michigan, Jace Young, who is the more likely second baseman and was frankly drafted to be that. So position is more the question, ironically, than hitting, because the hitting, they know he's really got a tremendous hit tool and power, and he's probably pretty close to being Detroit receptive there with his bat, but they've got to find out where he can play, and I think that's an unusual, but in this case, very specific challenge for the Tigers and Colt Keith.
Do you think this move now will push the Tigers to move Young up to AA?
Yes, I do. And that's right now. The only question is when. I think the fact that he's had a few ups and downs means that they might not mind having him at West Michigan for a little longer. But Jace Young is going to hit consistently, and they know he's ready for a AA challenge pretty quickly. So I would be surprised, Jack, if he's going to stay in Comstock Park for much more than, let's say, another month.
You know, Lynn, MLB just came out with its top 100 prospects, and the Tigers still only have 2 on that list. Is this damage from the Alavila years, or is this just an organization that just has not done a good job of developing players?
Yeah, it's damage from the last 4 decades because they have not drafted really, Jack, since the mid-'70s, when they forged, not coincidentally, their last world championship team. Trammell, Whitaker, Gibson, Parrish, Morris, Petrie. And without that kind of a superstructure, you're not going to have a championship team. And that's what they have failed to do, not just during Alavila's era. And they got a few people, but they failed really at drafting all for 4 decades. They had an occasional hit, a Verlander here, a Ricky Porcello, they got a Curtis Granderson, but very few people really, Jack, over 4 decades. And I mean, that's ridiculous. You look at the Baltimore Orioles, where they've gone just in a short span of time. Guess how they've done it? Mike Elias came in, the new GM, and built quickly with the draft, with bats, and getting a lineup completely regenerated. And the Tigers have steadfastly avoided doing that, which is why Scott Harris's first move as the Tigers' new GM, and it was done by about 8:30 that first morning, was he fired his domestic scouting director and replaced him with 2 people, 2 very good people, Rob Metzler from Tampa Bay and Mark Connor, who had worked with the Padres. And those are the guys now in charge as we get ready for 13 days from now and their first pick and subsequent picks.
You're expecting a bat like a Wyatt Langford to be selected if he's there at 3?
If he's there, he could go 1 now, the way he's finishing up here. And also, he's receptive to an underslot deal, meaning the Pirates might be able to sign him for a little less than $9 million and use that money to entice a kid later in the draft to pass up his college scholarship and sign with the Pirates. So pay attention to that kind of horse trading. But the big 3, as we know, are Wyatt Langford, and even ahead of him, Dylan Cruz from LSU, who is a fantastic hitter and center fielder. And then, of course, there's Paul Skeens, the 6'6" right-hander, who is the kind of pitcher you might see once a generation. I mean, he's really that good. Now, people get nervous. Pitchers get hurt, and they have Tommy John. Yeah, but if you want to scare yourself away from a franchise pitcher, then your fear is going to end up betraying you and lead to you investing in that sure thing high school prep star who comes up and suddenly can't hit high fastballs. And gee, we could have had Paul Skeens, but we kind of got nervous about Tommy John surgery. This is the kind of stuff that makes a baseball draft really, really a delicate exercise and a big gamble. But I think that what matters here really most, absolutely, Jack, for this Tigers audience, they have one of the top 3 picks, and we have 3 great players at the top of the draft. You're not going to lose with any of those 3.
Lynn, when you look at the state of the Tigers, bottom to top, are we close to a point where, there is hope?
Yeah, there is. And next spring, they'll actually come out of camp with a pretty good team. And that's based on 2 things. The fact that if they had Riley Green back in the lineup now, you'd be thinking a lot differently about this club. But you are getting close to adding to the mix. And Spencer Torkelson is going to hit. He is going to hit. You're adding to that mix a Colt Keith, a Parker Meadows. You're going to have a trade that can be made either during the midseason here, and I think the Tigers need to deal any and all tradable parts to upgrade their personnel for the long term and for the long haul. And then off season, they're going to have an excess of starters too that they can deal. And then in free agency, because they're going to be able to dip their toes into free agency where it's advisable. But people who think, Jack, that free agency is the answer to this team are nuts. All you can do is complement an existing core nucleus and framework with some helpful players here and there, but you can't build a contender out of free agency, which is what most of the fan base, frankly, has got it upside down.
How much longer do Tigers fans have to be patient with this regime? How quickly do you expect to see draft results from this regime in place?
2 weeks is why I think what we're going to be discussing here is going to be the whole ball game. What kind of talent did they get? Not that you're going to see what it can do in the big league level, but you're going to get a sense for how they drafted, what are the pedigree of the players that they did bring in, what was the talent ceilings, what were the floors. You can evaluate all that in a couple of weeks, and that had to turn over. But there's some elements too to this franchise that still need to be completely eviscerated and upended and redone. And that gets down to Latin America, where they just have done just about zilch, and other teams are loading up left and right. I just saw today's Baseball America Robo Scout list, and the Tigers have one here and there, which is what I knew, but you hated to see that reinforced because it just shows you how lacking in talent the Tigers have been on the international front, which is the other component part to having had bad drafts for so long.
You say Spencer Torkelson will hit. What makes you confident? Is it just the pedigree that he brought in? We just haven't seen it consistently at the big league level.
Tremendous bat speed. He doesn't get beaten by heat. He does know a strike from a ball, and his hard hit rate. It's just taking a little extra time. I think what hurt him more than anything was he was your Exhibit A COVID draft pick. Just at the very height of this is when he came out, and that really messed up his first 2 seasons in the minor leagues. It's taken him a little longer. Now, if he was getting beaten on pitches, if he didn't have the ability to put 118 and 120 exit velocities on balls, you'd say that this is not going to work out. If he was swinging and missing all the time, you'd say this is not working out. But all of the stuff is there. It's just taking a little bit more time for it to synchronize. He is going to be really, really good.
Lynn, in all your years, have you seen a franchise as snake bitten by injuries as we've seen with the Tigers the last few years?
No, and it's sort of an example that when things are going tough, your luck goes tough. And conversely, when you're winning and all the dice are coming up the right number, you generally have those things work out too. And I use as one example, the end of spring training last year when Riley Green fouled a ball off his foot, just about the last game of spring training, breaks his foot. The Tigers have to make a deal for an outfielder. They make a good deal for Austin Meadows, really a good left-handed power hitter. And what happens? He runs into psychological and emotional issues with anxiety. And the guy that they traded would have been a beautiful, beautiful piece, Isaac Paredes, in this whole shuffling from second to third. He can play both positions. And of course, he hits a bunch of home runs, which he got 13 home runs now. This is an example of what happens when, again, things are going bad. Your luck runs in the same parallel direction.
Yeah, now Candelario's playing pretty well.
Yeah, and I mean, this guy only had all last year to show, yeah, give me a reason to reinvest in you for another, and he didn't show it. And so, yeah, now is he getting instruction? No. It's a different year. It's a different culture. He's got a different mindset, I guarantee you. And that's what all made him a very, very nice pickup for Washington. But I couldn't defend that decision, or I certainly had to defend that decision. I couldn't have defended his decision to bring him back because he just had shown no indication that he was worthy of that kind of paying price to bring him back for 2023.
Last thing for you, you hear AJ's message and it rings intelligent. It sounds like the right message, but how much more patient will the Tigers be if they don't start seeing wins, or will they just look at the picture of all the injuries and so forth?
Oh yeah, I mean, if anybody that would lay this at the manager's doorstep is really, I think, lost their rational mind in terms of what's going on with a baseball team in Detroit. Manager is not the problem, and of course, rarely is it, as we know, Jack. In this instance, AJ Hinch is really the best thing they could have had going for him. Now, he knows next spring that he's going to leave Lakeland with a pretty good club. For the first time in 4 years, he's going to have a chance to really do some managing next year. But that time is not now. Now you're just kind of gluing this thing together in mid-flight and hoping you can land it. And that's exactly what they're doing. Now, when they get some people back, Green, they're going to get some pitchers back, Skubal and all these guys, Eduardo Rodriguez and Manning and people. All along, I thought they'd have a pretty good summer. Well, I think they will have a pretty good summer when they get the people back in the lineup. And at that point, you're going to see kind of what you saw at the beginning of May and through May, when they were looking okay until then Green got hurt and then people started falling left and right. And that's when it all blew up. But they're not going to have to wait much longer, Jack. And again, by the time they go to Lakeland next February, and I know people want to wait 7-8 months, if they'll wait, they're going to kind of like what they see in 2024. It won't be a gangbuster team, but it'll be a team that will begin to emerge that looks like the team they've been waiting for 10 years.